Hello, and welcome to episode number 218 of the Lines Podcast. My name is Matt Brown. I have with me two guys that are going to win you some money this week. Asterisk not guaranteed. Stephen Andress, Brad Allen. You can find Brad Allen on the Twitter machine at Brad Allen NFL. You can find Stephen at Stephen Andress 1. You can follow me at Matt Brown M2. Guys, we are here with a tournament that we have all been waiting for. I know Stephen was stashing bets away a long time ago. I've been stashing some bets away here and there. I'm sure Brad has as well. I mean, this is this is the 150th, right? This is really, really awesome of what we've got going on here. The old course at St. Andrews, 150th Open Championship, 156 players. We got 70 in ties that are going to make it. We got a pretty short course by today's standards, right? It's going to play on an average of 7,300-ish. It can play up to 7,500 depending on where they put the tee boxes on a few of the different holes or whatever. Unique course layout, even though it's a par 72. We've got the 2 par 3s, the 2 par 5s, and then the 14 par 4s. A few of those par 4s are going to be drivable. Wide fairways, huge greens, double greens, the whole 9 yards, 110 bunkers, 2 holes with water danger. Brad, I know you've played this course a couple dozen times, so tell us about, your experiences over there.
I have been reading a book this week about it's called like an American Caddy in St. Andrews. So I have been getting quite to grips with the course from that book. I mean, as you say, that like there's sort of, they share greens, they share fairways. And like apparently if you don't have a caddy or you haven't played it before, you have no idea how to play the course because it is just one big swathe of land. But yeah, I mean, some of the pictures coming out already, like the sort of nighttime 10:30 golf, it looks awesome. So I'm excited.
Stephen, whenever we take a look at the course itself, I mean, the only, if you guys have never seen this, if you guys are new to golf betting, if you guys are new to the Open Championship or whatever links play, this is a true links course where you're not going to see a tree. There's not going to be a tree. The natural defense here, Stephen, is going to be the natural defenses is going to be the wind. And then the only other defense really are these bunkers. And when we say bunkers, this is a different type of bunker because it's basically a penalty stroke. Like you are not able to really play out of these bunkers. And what people are going to find out if they're tuning in for the first time and never seen the old course at St. Andrews is guys are going to be playing sideways. They're going to be playing backwards. They're going to be playing whatever they can to get out of these bunkers, which again, if you go into some of these, it's basically taking a stroke penalty.
For sure. If you're up against the lip, you got to go sideways. Even if you have a pretty decent lie in there, it still takes, an extra loft just to make sure you clear the face of it. And then you're still potentially miles away from where the actual pin is. So it's going to take not only what we saw last year with fantastic ball striking from Colin Morikawa, but I think you need to be pretty savvy around the greens because there's going to be a lot of slopes. Just saw a video earlier today of Tiger Woods hitting 12 consecutive shots on 18 from the same exact spot. And that spot was 30 yards short of the pin. And he was using putter, not a wedge. So a lot of creativity, I think, is required this week to win the Open.
I'm glad that you bring that up because that leads me to the next question here. I mean, Brad, there are a lot of ways to skin the cat here with this one. If you talk to the different golfers out there, some will say, oh no, the Bombers are certainly going to have an advantage here. Then there's some who say, I don't know, if you're really, really accurate and you're able to drive it down the right side of the fairways, which is by far the more dangerous part of the fairways because that's where the bunkers lie, you have better angles into the greens. And as Stephen mentioned, some guys are going to be using putter from super far away. Some guys are going to intentionally lay back so that they can actually hit longer irons and because they're not so confident with their wedge play and all that. So we could see a bunch of different strategies actually this week. What type of golfer did you kind of back in this one? And what were you looking for when you started to whittle down your player pool?
Yeah, well, to your point, I've just been reading an interview or a golf.com story on Tiger. And apparently he's just been sort of scuttling around with his 4-iron, just hitting everything along the floor because apparently everything is just baked dry. As Stephen can attest, we're in the middle of a heat wave in the UK and we haven't seen rain in weeks. And so it is baked dry and there is a lot of roll. So you could argue it's going to bring people into it. When Tiger won here, I think 2005 or whatever, he was famous for hitting just irons off the tee and just scuttling them along the ground. But as you say, it sounds like there will be people who take out driver, just go for the green. Now, because it's playing so fast, if you're offline with those drivers, you're going to be skittering off, like miles offline, and then you're going to be in real trouble. So I've not really gone for a stereotypical type. I've not gone for bombers or short hitters, because I do think if you do either approach well, I think you could probably have success. Right, if you hit your driver sort of online, you're going to have a wedge in, and you're going to be okay. But you could also scuttle it 300 down the middle using a 2-iron perhaps. So I think either can work. I went for links form more than anything.
So Stephen, a couple of different things here. One, what type of golfer were you looking for this week? What did you do when you were bringing down your, kind of whittling down the player pool here? And secondly, what type of scoring do you think we're going to see here? Because that also plays into what type of golfer that I was looking for this week, that I was narrowing down, because from the conditions is one, you guys are there. I've heard, several different people on the floor over there who have been talking about this. Like, they think that we're not going to get all that much weather, certainly not going to get much rain. And then the winds, again, things can change on a dime. It is a links course. I mean, the winds can come and go, but way we look at it right now, it does not look like there's going to be, by Old Course St. Andrews standards, much wind at all. And so in my opinion, I'm kind of playing this like we're going to see 17, 18, 19, maybe even 20 under for this. Like, I think the winning score could be pushing 20. And if that's the case, for me, it's a different type of golfer that I'm looking for than if this thing is playing closer to 10, 11, 12.
I agree with you. Given the two options, I think we are going to see pretty significant scores under par from the winner of this week, with really the wind forecast. You mentioned it, Matt. I was checking it this past weekend, and it looked like we might have gotten some days during this tournament where it was 15 to 20 miles per hour. That updated forecast, as we record this on Tuesday, is that for the most part, 50 miles per hour or less. So to me, wind is the only real defense of this course, considering that 1/3 of the course are par fours that are shorter than 400 yards. I mean, there's a real chance here that the long straight hitters could take apart this place. We're talking about a course that, as much as they've updated over the years to try and combat the modern game, is still a track that was invented 470 years ago. So I do think there's a chance that the longer hitters could have an advantage here this week with the wind down, like it looks like it's going to be. And if that's the case, yes, they might wind up in a pot bunker around the green, but I'd still rather that on the second shot than potentially a guy having to do it on their third shot. So I've kind of built two separate models this week and tried to find golfers that were peaking in both. One where I included driving distance, and another where I didn't include driving distance, and I had strokes gained off the tee in both of them. So that's kind of where I'm at. I do think that it's not required to be long, but I still think it will be an advantage.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting this week to see whenever we start talking about our plays and picks and whatnot, because I did actually I did two models as well, like you did, Stephen. I did one where I actually weighted driving distance fairly heavily, and one where I took it out altogether and just used good drives instead, and just to kind of see what the odd, kind of how the odd juxtaposition of that changed the way the model played out. And shockingly, it kind of didn't, which was weird enough for me. Like a lot of the same guys, a lot of the same stuff and whatever. So let's start at the top of the odds board here though, guys. I mean, if you are listening to this or watching this on the YouTube channel, be sure and subscribe, rate, review on the audio side. If you are on the video side, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. We really do appreciate the support from you guys here on the YouTube channel as well. If we start at the top of the board, guys, Rory McIlroy, the best odds you're going to find on him is 10-1. There are several books out there that do have the 10-1. So be sure and look at one of the 10-1 books, not one of the 9-1 books. Xander Schauffele, after the back-to-back wins. You can find a 16, and that is the best number you're going to find on Xander right now out there at PointsBet is 16, as low as 12 in the market right now for Xander. John Rahm, you can find an 18, 16 is about the consensus. Scotty Scheffler, you can find a few different 18s for him. Jordan Spieth, you can find 18s. Matt Fitzpatrick, you can find a 20, and that kind of gets us into this kind of middle tier of really good golfers that you can still find 20 or longer on. Justin Thomas at 22, Shane Lowry at 22, Cantlay up at 28, Cam Smith up at 28 as well. So top of the board here, Brad. Listen, I did a bunch of runnings of things. I did a bunch of recent form stuff. I did a bunch of things I was looking for. Every single version of everything I did points towards Xander, points towards Rory, a little bit towards Jordan Spieth. I mean, so there are a lot of these guys that are short in this very short number range that I love. My model loves everything about me that I watch every single golf tournament every single week. So what I've seen with my own eyeballs loves all these guys. It's just, if you're betting golf every single week, you're betting 10-1 guys. It's going to, you're going to go broke. So it's tough for me. I think I'm going to find a way to get exposure to Rory, find a way to get exposure to Xander. Maybe that's through head-to-heads. Maybe that's through three balls, whatever it might be. But I just don't think I can pull the trigger on these guys at such short numbers. Did you have any of these guys here on the top of the board make your card?
I did not. And it was just the number. As you say, they all pop up. If you're looking at all the things we've talked about, like total driving, wedges, irons, they're all at the top at the top of the list. There's a reason they're the best players in the world. But Rory 10-1, Spieth 18-1. Like I just don't think there's any value in them given the quality of the field. My first bet was much lower down. Of this top tier you were just talking about, two stood out the most to me. One was Cantlay. Again, he's long off the tee. He was good last week. I think he was T4, 3 shots back from Xander. And if you look at his links form, it's perhaps not as good as you would hope. But the other thing I quite liked was some Masters form. Obviously, Cantlay's played well at the Masters before. And there is some crossover there if you look at that. And I think that you don't need to be too accurate off the tee. It can be forgiving wide fairways. And then precise irons into sort of these big slopey greens. And then 3-putt avoidance. That's another thing they share. They both have big greens and you need to avoid 3-putts. And so I think Cantlay does quite well in all of those three. And at 25-1, you're just getting a little bit of extra juice compared to like the 18s you're getting with Spieth.
Yeah. So, Stephen, my first bet did come in this tier. I took Justin Thomas when he drifted to 22. And the thing for me is, like, if he would have showed well last week, he would be sitting up there with the Schefflers and everyone else. He'd be 16, 17, 18, something like that. He goes out there, he punts it off when he knows he's not going to make the cut. Then he just punts it off because he started working on different shots and was just trying to try different things out there when he knew he wasn't going to make the cut. So the overall score isn't indicative of what it actually could have been. He was just like, hey, I'm going to miss the cut anyway. Let's try some stuff that I might need to use next week whenever I get over to the Open Championship. And so the drift to 22 got me on Justin Thomas. I played Cam Smith a long time ago because I didn't think, and I got him at 27 feeling like I was going to be super smart and that there weren't going to be numbers that were better available. You can get him 28 on DraftKings right now. So I'm not as smart as I thought I was. So I do have 2 guys on my card within this tier right here. One at a number I really like in Justin Thomas at 22. And the 27 that I thought would be long gone for Cam Smith is actually not even the best number that you can get as of us recording this here on a Tuesday morning.
You and I are in sync, my friend. This is the name that I bet near the top of the board. Also got him when he drifted to 22-1. Don't really give a damn that he missed the cut at the Scottish Open. Colin Morikawa finished outside the top 70 last year at the Scottish Open and won the next week at the Open. So it doesn't bother me one bit. Could not get away from JT, honestly. The model was slapping me in the face, telling me to bet on him. Last 50 rounds, last 36 rounds, number 1 in both of those. Number 2 in the last 24 rounds. We'll get to who's on top of that list in a little bit. When I inserted wind into the equation, just in case we do get it, still number 1. When I took driving distance out of the model, Justin Thomas, still number 1. over the last 50 rounds. So my concern is that he doesn't have great history in the Open Championship, but he's also playing outstanding golf. And I thought that 22-1 went too far, and he should have been short of 20-1 in this field and with the year that he's had.
Brad, I have a strategy in this, and I'm curious as to what you think about this, because Matthew Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, I had for the U.S. Open, and I had a future on him, and he won. So thank you, Matthew Fitzpatrick. And I'm taking the opposite approach in this one. And I've already played 2 head-to-heads against him. If I can find more that pop up, I'm going to continue to play against him here. One, the numbers have got so short where the matchups against the quality of players that he's up against is, I think he's the inferior player to the player that he's up against. And then also, I like Matt Fitzpatrick on the low scoring slog courses, the tracks that are going to play at 7 under for the whole tournament or 8 under for the whole tournament. If you kind of look at these tournaments where he's up at the top and he's done super well, it's these tournaments where you got to grind, where par is a good score a lot of times. Well, if I believe that that's not how this is going to play out, if I believe, which I do, that this is going to be a low scoring contest, that this is going to be some where you have to make birdies and you have to make birdies in bunches at times, then Fitzpatrick doesn't fit that mold for me and doesn't fit that player profile. And so I'm actually going against the guy who won the last major on tour right now. So tell me if I'm crazy.
Well, to your point, the Scottish Open last week, another links course. He came in T6 at -3, and obviously the win was at -7. So contending with the low scoring. I would say I'm not sure what to do with Fitzpatrick, because I do think he's transformed his game. Like, you've seen him, like hooked up to all the sensors and stuff, and just sort of doing the Bryson thing, or like the driveline baseball thing, just working on velocity or working on club speed in this case. So, he led the entire field in strokes gained off the tee at the Masters. So I do wonder if he comes out here and just goes for the full-out bomb and gouge strategy, and he's perhaps more equipped than someone like Bryson. If he is near the green, he's perhaps got better touch. So, as I say, I've not bet for or against him, because I can see your point, but I do wonder if he has sort of transformed his game, because I think he's got that growth mindset that a lot of these athletes talk about, and I do think he's probably still improving all the time.
Stephen, another very popular name in this tier, and then we can move on, but I have heard Shane Lowry over the last 48 hours like nobody's business. And that has driven his price all the way down to 22-1 as we sit right now. That is the best price you can get on Shane Lowry at 22-1. I know I see it, right? I see it in my mind. I see the stats. I see the stuff or whatever. I just do wonder about a 22-1. If we're going to try to, recommend someone here today, again, on a Tuesday morning, like a 22-1 on Shane Lowry in a field this incredibly strong, is the win equity really there at a 22-1 price for me against, where I can get a better number on a Cam Smith, a better number on a Morikawa or whatever further down the board, some other guys that we'll talk about a little bit later. I like Shane Lowry's game just fine. This feels more like a top 20 bet to me, maybe even a top 10 bet to me or something like that for Lowry, but an outright at 22, I just can't get there.
The more long-term form for him is attractive. He got as high as 6th for me over the last 50 rounds. That was when he was almost winning the Honda Classic, kind of that point in time. But it hasn't been quite as elite recently. He's still up there though in the stats that I'm using. For context, in addition to the strokes gained off the tee and the driving distance and strokes gained on approach, I have things in there like 3-putt avoidance, because a 2-putt might actually get you a birdie on some of these short par 4s. 14 of these holes are par 4s. It's a par 72, but there's only 2 par 3s and only 2 par 5s. So strokes gained on par 4s and par 4 scoring from 350 to 400, because 1/3 of the holes fall into that range. So Lowry didn't get into the top 5 for me using those statistics. But if you just take a more general approach and look at strokes gained data over the last 36 rounds, Shane Lowry is up there. If you look at over the last 50 rounds as well, he's top 5 in total strokes gained, I believe. So if you guys recall, we did the U.S. Open podcast, and I said Shane Lowry is going to win the Open. Well, that was when I thought it was going to be actually open conditions where it was going to be windy and it was going to be more of a slog. And I see this as a very, like you said, Matt, I see a 15 to 20 under par for the winner here. I'd be more interested in Shane Lowry if this was going to be a more difficult test.
Like I said, I have Cam Smith on my card. I made it a long time ago. Everything about the Open at St. Andrews just screams Cam Smith to me, because we all know, we talk about this, all the time, guys. The only flaw to his game is off the tee. The guy can spray it with the best of them. Well, guess what? You can spray it here this week. Yes, there's going to be some penalty if you hit one of those bunkers or something like that. But if not, there's nobody who's as creative. There's nobody who's as good around the greens and putting and lag putting and all that than it is with Smith. And so for me, I wish I had a better number. That looks like there's going to be maybe this number continues to drift even higher on Cam Smith for whatever reason, but I'll take the 27. Really do like everything about his game, particularly at this course, the way that this is going to play this week. So let's get into this next tier. And it starts the 30 to 1s, and that's Will Zalatoris, Colin Morikawa, Tommy Fleetwood, Dustin Johnson, and we'll go all the way to 50. Tyrrell Hatton, Tony Finau, Louis Oosthuizen, Sam Burns, Brooks Koepka, Hideki Matsuyama, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Joaquin Niemann are all sitting in that 50. You can get those guys as high as 50 to 1. Morikawa, of course, Zalatoris all the way down. You can get those guys as high as 30 to 1. Brad, is this where you started your card this week in this tier, or are we still drifting further?
No, this is Tony Finau is my favorite bet. Around 45 is probably a fairly widely available number. So to me, he's got the Open form. He's got the links form. He's in good form as well, and he's got the driving and the approach. So just to jump into that, there's 3 players since '95. This stats from Justin Ray to have played 20 more rounds at the Open and gained more than 2 strokes a round. So it's Spieth, Tiger Woods, and then Tony Finau, which I wouldn't have said. Most people think of Finau as kind of an Open specialist. But again, you look at strokes gained total on links courses last 5 years. Finau's 4th in this field. Similar people above him. Xander Schauffele above him as well. But as we've said, he might be a bit short. So you look at current form as well. So since the middle of the year, last 6 tournaments, Finau's come top 10 in 3 of them, and he's missed 1 cut. So again, top 10 in half your events. Of the last 10 measured rounds, he's gained strokes gained approach in 9 of those 10, and we know he's long off the tee if he needs it, if he wants to reach back and go for it. So, yeah, at 45 to 1, it looks to me like he's got the skill set of someone close to 30 to 1. Now, I would say we know he's probably not a natural winner. So if you don't have each way available to you, as a lot of people in the US don't, then maybe a top 10 is better for Mr. Finau.
Funny you bring up Tony Finau, because in my 36-round model, he tops my 36-round model. He is the number 1 player on there. He's the only guy not in my portfolio right now that I actually think is going to get there. I think that he's going to end up in there for me. I can't find a way off of a guy that ranks so incredibly highly in something that I value so much this week. Who do you like in this tier here, Steven?
A man by the name of Tony Finau. I mentioned that Justin Thomas was number 2 in the last 24. Tony Finau, number 1 in the model I'm using this week over the last 24 rounds. Oh, by the way, also number 2 in our golf writer John Hasselbauer's model. We mentioned on the Sunday video that we thought maybe his odds might drift a little bit. At that point, there were 3 books in the U.S. that had him at 50 to 1. So we told everybody to keep an eye on it. Worst case, if a couple of them move, you can get the last remaining 50. Well, as we record this 48 hours later, 45 to 1 is the best available price. And hopefully you got it early, because there was even some 65 to 1s here over the weekend on Tony Finau. That's when I locked it in. So I have 66 on him. And yeah, just really clean across the board here. Top 15 in several of the metrics that I mentioned that I'm using and weighing heavily this week. And one of the points John Hasselbauer made as well is that kind of connection with desert golf here that we might see here this week with the firm and fast conditions. That's something that Tony Finau has done well in. I think around the golf community, we all agree that Finau has this reputation of not being able to close, but I think that he's shown that he can win. And I was really impressed with his performance at the Canadian Open, even though he finished third. It just had a Rory scorched earth final round that cost him a win there. So I think things are lining up pretty well here. And I actually like the links form, the open form, better than Justin Thomas's open form.
Yeah, so I actually have two different guys here in this tier, and no one's going to be shocked by one of the names, and that name's Sam Burns. Listen, I complain on these podcasts all the time about, not having the menu that you guys have, right, rest of country, or in Brad's case, rest of world. And for me, the only thing I do get is rogue numbers on guys sometimes. So that is fortunate for me. Sam Burns, 56-1. I have a 56-1 Sam Burns ticket here. A guy with as much win equity as Sam Burns at 56-1 is an auto bet for me. It doesn't matter at all. That being said, he still does rank highly in the models for me. So I do have a Sam Burns ticket in there at 56-1. The other guy in here that I have is a guy who was 25th at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship in 2017. He was second at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship in 2018. He was fifth at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship in 2019. It wasn't played in 2020. And then he was seventh at the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship in 2021. You're asking, what does it matter about the Alfred Dunhill Links Championship? Well, they play Kingsbarns, they play Carnoustie, and then if you make the cut, which this guy did, obviously, by the statistics that I've given you, these finishing positions for him, you play the old course at St. Andrews twice during the course of the tournament. That guy is Tommy Fleetwood. Tommy Fleetwood has a bunch of links experience as it is anyway. He has played the old course a ton, and he has had success a ton at the old course. And so for me, Fleetwood is one of the better bets for me, certainly a first round leader bet for me that I'm going to have in the account as well. But a dude that has as much familiarity with this course as anybody, and maybe more success on this course, though it isn't actually at an Open Championship, than anybody out there as well. Because again, if you play this tournament and you make the cut, you play the old course twice. So 2 of the 4 rounds for the tournament is at the old course. And again, a 25th, a 2nd, a 5th, and a 7th in the last 4 runnings of that tournament. And I guess officially in this tier, I have a Max Homa ticket, but I have a Max Homa ticket at 110-1, but he's down to 50-1, which is insanity to me. So I couldn't recommend playing Max Homa at 50-1 at this number. That being said, Brad, if you look at Max, he had a big round at the Scottish Open. He goes 4 under. He rockets kind of up the leaderboard before he melts, on the back 9 on Sunday. He was actually in contention after the first 9 on Sunday at the Scottish, where he was 3 under, finds himself at 5 under for the tournament. Probably could have competed if he would have had, even just a decent back 9. Instead, he 2 bogeys and a double, which falls him to T16 in the tournament. But another guy like Burns, Max Homa, the win equity is there. The guy's won multiple times on tour. So I can see, I guess, why the recent form, what we've seen from him, and then also the win equity for him, I can see why people are betting him, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've missed the boat though, right? I mean, I'm betting him at 100, but I'm looking at 55 as the best number I can see. And yeah, I just feel like we've missed the boat on that one. I do worry about that with Fleetwood as well. Again, I'm looking at a 33 here. Is he really better than a lot better than Matsuyama at 45, Finau at 45, Zalatoris at 30? Or has he got some sort of Scottish Open recency bias in there because he came top 5 last week?
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. Guys, before we move out of this tier, let's talk about a couple of names here. Just quick thoughts, Steven. I mean, listen, we got Oosthuizen in here. This is the tier with Koepka. This is the tier with Hovland, with Neiman. what do we feel on any of these guys? I mean, Terrell Hatton is a guy that I know a lot of people keep bringing up over and over again. I can't get there because the guy can't put 4 rounds together. Like you have to put 4 rounds together to win a tournament, and especially a tournament that I feel is going to be low scoring. Like, yeah, you can have a bad round in a low scoring tournament and you can still come back. Like for me, the way that I think this tournament plays out, you got to put 4 rounds together. Terrell Hatton can't put 4 rounds together without losing his mind. So I don't know why he's so popular. He's down to 40-1 is the best number you can get on him. I can't get there.
Too short.
Yeah, it's too short. It's probably a horse for the course angle is why I think he's won the Alfred Dunhill a couple of times. But yeah, I'm with you. He's one of the more entertaining guys to have on a microphone in a golf tournament, but it's also the reason why I don't want to bet him for an outright, because he just can't, stay composed when some adversity hits at times. So I'm with you guys. I also have a Sam Burns bet I made a couple of weeks ago at 40-1. It didn't make sense to me, some of the names that were above him on that futures board with the form that he's had over the past year. I think he's just a class golfer in the world right now. And the way things went with Max Homa, it was a very, I guess uninteresting rankings board for me after I ran numbers. And I guess it should be. It's a major championship. 8 of the 10 names I had surface in the top 10 were guys who were 25-1 or shorter. But one of the names that wasn't was Max Homa. And if you look just broad picture at strokes gain data over the past 50 rounds, he is 12th in total strokes gained. And he apparently just loves links golf, right? This is a guy who, in the middle of playing the Scottish Open, went and played another 18 holes at a local links course, eating it up. So I am a little concerned. This is totally narrative street here, Matt. But I don't like that he got wound up putting or playing the first 2 rounds in Tiger Woods' group, because he's a total fanboy, as we all are. But it's like he tweeted him years ago saying he hoped to play a practice round with him at the U.S. Open. So I hope he can handle the crowds and maybe the pressure of playing with his idol and rise to that occasion. I would have preferred him just playing in a boring group and going out and taking care of his business. He's going to have the massive crowds now with Tiger in his same group. But love Homa's game, love where it's at. And I think he has the stats that matter to contend here this week. I will say this thing as well, Matt, is that we are getting a discount on these live guys, right? Because nobody knows what to do with them. So if we are talking about bombing and gouging, potentially distance having a bit of an advantage, it wouldn't shock me if a Dustin Johnson is in contention. Bomb and gouge doesn't fit Louis Oosthuizen, and the form before he left to live was crap, but he won the Open at St. Andrews and lost in a playoff the other time at St. Andrews for the Open. So just from a pure horse for the course angle, I did put him on my outrights card just at a lesser potential payout than what I did for these other guys, almost like a defensive bet. Because I do think that some course knowledge and some savviness and knowing where to put the ball in certain spots will come in handy. And I think Louis Oosthuizen is on the very short list of guys that you could nominate as having the best knowledge to do that at St. Andrews.
All right, Brad. So now we've hit the longer than 50 realm here, and I know these aren't necessarily long shots, if we air quote long shots here, but we see a lot of, it's typically class golfers that win this thing, right? I mean, it's typically the guys kind of in that top to the middle of the board that win this thing. So I'll go ahead and consider anybody longer than 50 a long shot here. So who has made your card that is longer than 50-1?
So one I bet earlier today, Keith Mitchell, 150-1. And this is kind of the bomber's angle. He's top 6% in the field in distance off the tee and top 4% in the field in adjusted strokes gained off the tee. And he's getting a little bit of pub this side of the Atlantic because his dad is a member of St. Andrews and his sister went to university at St. Andrews. So apparently he's played a lot of rounds here. So he should know some of the quirks of this course quite well. He played last week in the Scottish Open. He made the cut. I think he finished T38 or so. So, he got four rounds in. He didn't blow anyone away. But with those attributes, the length and potentially knowing the course quite well with a bit of links under his belt, I thought 150 to 1, especially if you can get some each way places. I think that's quite a tasty bet.
I only smile because I have a 250 to 1 Keith Mitchell ticket in my account as well, for the exact same reasons that you just said. Everything that you just said was the reasons he made. Yeah, because if this does become a hard, no wind, whatever, he's going to be driving every damn green. I mean, like, he's going to have a chance to putt at eagles and birdies after 2 putts, like Steven, like you were talking about, so I did take that angle just in case the course ends up playing that way. I think a guy at a super long number like him could in fact actually find himself in contention. Steven, where are you in this, 50 plus range for guys that are going to either have made the card or you're at least considering to make the card?
Yeah, I have a net futures on Homa at 90 to 1. That's really the only guy right now in that 50 to 100 to 1 range. I see what you're saying with Keith Mitchell. Over his last 50 rounds, top 8 in driving distance and strokes gained off the tee. Basically the same thing last 24 rounds. The question I want to ask you guys is if that's an angle that you are considering, then what are you doing with Bryson DeChambeau? Because the stats are still there for him off the tee, and we know that he's a pretty decent putter. It's just he couldn't hit an iron to save his life this entire calendar year of 2022. But if he's not even going to have to take an iron out of the bag for a third of these holes, can I interest you at a triple-digit number on Bryson DeChambeau?
And the reason you bring that up, if at DraftKings right now, 110 to 1 on Bryson
and
at
that's
DraftKings.
Down then, because I saw 130 to 1 earlier today. So he's gotten some looks.
Shot money's coming.
I mean, Brad, I'll be honest. I mean, if it does play that way, I guess there is something in me that says, okay, he could win this thing or something. It's just his recent form has just been such garbage that for me, it's just, this is probably a leak in my golf betting or whatever, because I just watch so much golf and I watch damn near every round of every tournament or whatever, that when I see a guy that's just struggled so much and has just looked like crap so much, it's hard for me to put a ticket in on the guy. But, it would make sense if someone said, hey, I have 110 to 1 ticket on Bryson in this because I think he could drive, 10 of these greens or something. I'd be like, okay, fair.
Throw some lunch money on it, right? At that number. I mean, it's not like we're not predicting Bryson's going to win this tournament. We're saying at 110 to 1, we might want to consider a little bit of lunch money on it. That's all, because I'm still going to be at home hoping he winds up in a pot bunker and his wedge with a shaft the length of a 7-iron is too long to clear the lip behind him.
Right. What do you think about that, Brad? Do you think that that's crazy or no?
I think straight outright at triple digits, I think it is probably not a bad bet. I mean, I've not been following Liv at all. I'm just trying to pull up their Portland leaderboard now, and I'm seeing Bryson at 10th.
He did okay. Yeah. I don't remember exactly where he finished, Brad, but if I remember, he wasn't quite in contention, but he wasn't playing Phil Mickelson golf either.
So if he's top 10ing, it's not a bad field. The field here he's beaten by DJ, Usti, Carlos Ortiz, Patrick Reed. They're proper golfers. Yeah, if he's healthy, obviously that price is probably ridiculous because, as you say, his weakness has been wedges, and there is a good chance he can be taking his second shot from the green. Like, he could be putting from just off the green, and then he might not. He might have to hit a handful of wedge shots all round. So, yeah, I think that is potentially a sneaky little win equity angle there.
Let me throw out a few different names here, and then I want just give me, any thoughts you have on any of them. Brad, I'll start with you. I'm kind of backtracking here, but I do want to get your thoughts here. Like Victor Hovland, this is a guy that I was betting damn near every week 2 years ago, and now I want to just continue to bet against the guy. Like, I mean, he's got the yips or something with whatever. I mean, dude just can't do it. I mean, is this a buy low spot? I mean, Hovland was, under 20 to 1 or right at 20 to 1 for several tournaments for about a 12-month stretch. Here we are getting 50 to 1 on Victor Hovland. Is this like, are we blinded here? Is this a buy low spot on this guy? Or is it just the form has been so incredibly bad for so long that you'd need to see something before you'd feel comfortable betting?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. Like he's not done anything, right? And although this is maybe not your traditional major with like high rough and tight fairways, I still don't think you show up to St Andrews and suddenly find it. You know, even the people talking about the course are saying if you hit good shots, it's easy. If you hit bad shots, like you will find yourself in those bunkers, you will find yourself on the wrong fairway, and then it's a nightmare. So yeah, I still don't think we wanted to just bank on someone suddenly turning it around this week.
Stephen, 3 other names I keep hearing brought up, and I don't know if these were guys you even considered at all. Robert McIntyre, Gary Woodland, and then Cam Young. And Cam Young was under the same pretense that Brad and I used on Keith Mitchell, right? Whereas if this becomes just a course that you can out drive, well, we know that Cam Young is basically the best driver of the golf ball on tour right now. And so, what do you, did any of those 3 guys even pop up on your radar at all? And then if not, what do you think kept you off of those 3 guys?
Cam Young is on my outright card. I did bet Cam Young to win this tournament. One of the few names that had a pretty decent number. I mean, we were talking about him as a nice little number to bet for the U.S. Open when he had drifted all the way to 50-1, and now we're getting triple digits again on Cam Young a month later. So if I thought he was a good fit with his distance at the U.S. Open, potentially incorrectly considering some of, it was a little tighter over there with longer rough, but a little more forgiving, I think, here off the tee for Cam Young at 130-1. I want to bet that. I got him at 100. I had to make some bets early before I flew over here to the UK for a work week. So, I would jump on 100. I would put it this way: gun to my head, I'd rather bet Cam Young than I would Bryson DeChambeau at 110-1.
Yeah, I mean, and that number at DraftKings too is pretty off market, right? I mean, like you're looking at 130 on Cam Young at DraftKings, where he's 95 at MGM, right? Where he's, we see high numbers at PointsBet all the time. He's 100 at PointsBet, so you're getting a fairly off market number on Young at DraftKings at 130 as well. So that might be even more reason, because it looks like it's about 30 points off of where the rest of the market is sitting right now.
Yeah, and the reason is because the form has kind of dropped off here over the past 3 weeks. He's missed a cut. He hasn't really been in contention. So the most recent thing we saw going into the U.S. Open was a bunch of top 5s on his card for the season. That's kind of cooled off a little bit. So you are taking the more long-form look at Cam Young and hoping he can get back to the form that was very attractive as a rookie. And, we are potentially betting here at, small dollar amounts at a large number, but a guy to try and win his first event in a major championship. That doesn't happen very often, right? But what I love is that he's not just long off the tee, but he converts as well. Over his last 50 rounds, he's 7th in this field in strokes gained par 4s. And as we mentioned, 14 of the 18 holes at this tournament are par 4s. And he's also pretty good around the green. He's not elite, but he's above average in this field. So if he does miss some greens here and there, hopefully he can, chip and putt his way to some birdies on this course with how far he's going to be bombing it off the tee. The other guys are tough for me that you mentioned. Didn't really make my card. Don't really have a good reason to say otherwise. Just other guys were peaking for me more, and Cam Young was one of the names that intrigued me for sure.
If you guys are wondering how it's so easy for us to find the best number that's available out there, if you just go to the lines and you hover over the odds tab at the top in the top navigation, you'll see golf. And then you click from there, you just click 150th Open, and it'll take you to a page that has all the different sports books in your state, and you can easily find the best number available to you. So again, like we're talking about, if you wanted to bet Cam Young, like if you just went to your book of choice, right, the book that you kind of default to, you might be missing out on a massive amount of value that you could get had you headed across the street to DraftKings to get the 130, right? And so just always head to this page and make sure that that you're getting the best number, especially when you start talking about some of these guys that are longer odds, because you can get massive differences in the prices that are available. So don't cheat yourself out of money that you could win should this ticket actually get home for you. Brad, before I get your full card here, are there any golfers you're looking to target? Are there any golfers you're looking to fade? Are there any golfers that you've heard that were, that are super popular this week that you are just completely out on?
I'll give you one bet. I had to go into town, went to a bookies to put this down in person because they weren't offering it online. Is Tiger Woods to make the cut? I took minus 125. I'll probably go minus 130. So he's been at St Andrews since Saturday now. And one of the golf reporters was saying he's now he's played 58 holes at the course. And again, I was reading about how his strategy was just play it along the floor, use this baked out fairways. And if you think he's made the cut at the first two majors he's played with relative ease, and then obviously he's fallen off and he didn't even finish the US Open. But those were tough walks. Like Augusta was hilly, the US Open was hilly, and this is much flatter and much shorter. And obviously he's won here. He's won here twice, has he? He knows the course like the back of his hand. And even people he's playing with this week, I think he played around with Lee Trevino. He said Tiger's not having a problem hitting it at all. Like the ball striking is as good as it ever was. It's just the walking that's a problem. So if we're just taking him to make the cut again, we need 2 rounds of walking. And he's shown right. Even when he's less healthy on harder terrain, he's got 2 rounds of walking and good ball striking in him. So I really think that is, that's my favorite bet of the week personally.
And it's and let's all remember it's 70 in ties this week as well, right? I mean, it's not the 65 in ties, and so that could equal 8-9 extra players, right? When it's all said and done. So I like that as well. Steven, before we get your full betting card, anybody you're targeting, anybody you're fading, anybody you have a massively differing opinion on than what it seems like is the consensus out there?
Well, it's a major, so I'm going to give you another top nationality market per our little tradition here. And even though he absolutely lit my wallet on fire for the U.S. Open, I can get behind Sung Jae Im at plus 190, plus 195 to be the top South Korean this week. He's pretty lengthy off the tee himself, so I think he fits quite nicely. Pretty decent gap between him and the rest of the South Koreans when I ran some numbers. And as you mentioned, Matt, the tool to look at outright odds across the American books that we have at thelines.com. If you go into the odds tab and hit player prop finder tool, you'll also be able to search guys by name and find the best markets. And Brad mentioning Tiger Woods brought to mind a prop that I like this week. I wasn't able to get it down because I was flying over here to the UK, but did a search on Tiger Woods. You can find him at a couple of books to make the cut at around minus 150. But the bet I kind of like, based on the angle that I do think he is going to come out strong. He has said this is his favorite course in the entire world to play. I was shocked that he's played 50-plus holes. I considered that he would care more about resting and recovery to make sure that he could potentially get through 4 rounds of golf with his leg. Top 20 after round 1, plus 420 at FanDuel. I think that's worth a sprinkle. I think that he knows this, like I mentioned with Usti, just knowing the nuances of this place. Tiger Woods would be at the top of my list of guys in this field that know this place better than anybody. I can get plus 420 on him to kind of strategize his way around here to potentially just be top 20 after Thursday.
So I talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. I am targeting Fitzpatrick to fade. I'm trying to find head-to-heads against him. Another thing that could come up and bite me in the ass, I'm doing the same thing with Will Zalatoris because I look at Zalatoris as the same type of golfer as Fitzpatrick with the like, hey, he doesn't make a lot of putts. So if you don't make a lot of putts, you really need the scoring to be lower and you can kind of keep it around. And so I see Zalatoris, and the reason he's done so well in these majors, because most of the majors are super hard, right? Most of these majors, the scores are pretty low and it's tough scoring conditions. And so him not making the putts that he needs to make doesn't affect him near as much as a tournament, which again, I could be wrong, but I'm playing this as if this is going to play at 17, 18, 19, 20. And so if that's the case, I'm going against Zalatoris as well. So he's another guy that I'm fading. I'm looking to take on him in head to heads. I'm looking to take him on in 3-balls as well. The last guy, and I mentioned him, I was curious if I was going to get any insight from you guys. So I'm glad at least it wasn't a buy low spot. I'm targeting Victor Hovland as well. Listen, I like the guy's game a ton. It's just he's lost what he was doing 2 years ago, where he was basically a top 10, top 5 machine every single tournament that he played. Hopefully he does find it, one of the good young players on tour. But right now, from a betting standpoint, he has to be a dude that I have to go after and it kind of attack this slump right now and attack this downswing. So those 3 guys I'm looking to really take on in head to heads, and I'm almost taking all comers. That's not to say I will take all comers against them. There are some that I've passed on, but most of the guys that I'm seeing paired up against these dudes are dudes that I'm willing to go ahead and play against. So those guys are all fades for me.
Speaking of lost and found, have they found Victor Hovland's clubs yet? Because didn't the airline lose his clubs last week?
Yes, he had to play with some like other clubs at the Scottish or whatever.
And you mentioned Will Zalatoris, Matt. I want to share this stat from Andy Lack. He tweeted earlier this week. Zalatoris strokes gained putting in the 3 majors this year, plus 17.4. Zalatoris strokes gained putting in his 9 other starts, minus 16.1. Like, that is absurd. Like, you basically have to think that he continues this outlier putting performance to continue to contend here to bet him at that short number. I was interested in him earlier this year, like 50-1 or so, but I can't get behind him at the numbers we're seeing now.
All right, this is the moment everyone's been waiting for. Brad, let's run through your betting card and then go ahead and add if there's anything you're considering, because again, we are doing this on Tuesday. There's still a long time between now and first tee. So if there's anything you're even considering adding as well, so people can look into it a little bit further.
Yep. So favorite bet on the card, as I say, is Tiger Woods to make the cut, or Stevens Angle I like as well. On the outrights, Tony Finau, 45-1, some top 10 and top 20 as well, if you fancy. Slightly lower down, Keith Mitchell, 150-1 to win. And other ones I'm considering would be the bombers we talked about. So Bryson DeChambeau, 125-1. I think that's worth a flyer. Cam Young, 150. And maybe even Wyndham Clark, who you start to get really high numbers on Wyndham Clark, and another sort of bomber who's good with the putter.
All right, Stephen, what's on the card? What are you considering?
All right, outright card, Justin Thomas, 22-1. Just think it's a slightly disrespectful number considering some of the names that are above him and his pedigree. And again, just could not find a stat where he wasn't top 20 in the field that we care about this week. So a little bit further down the board, Sam Burns at 40-1, Louis Oosthuizen 50-1, but at more of a defensive bet there. I'm not a true believer, just more of course history with Oosty. Tony Finau, 66-1. Max Homa might be my favorite bet this week, considering the number that I got at 90-1. Yeah. I'm with you guys. I wouldn't bet him at 50, but I'd be looking carefully for a spot to enter in the live market to get closer to those original odds that we saw that started around triple digits. Couple names that we did not mention so far. One in particular that I did bet. Hat tip to John Hasselbauer for this one. Victor Perez. Now, the recent form isn't there with Perez. He's not played great in the past 3 tournaments, but another guy who won the Alfred Dunhill Links at St. Andrews for a couple of rounds. Another guy who has a win and a top 3 on the DP World Tour this year. So potentially some good play this season along with course history. So 150-1, I believe, on Victor Perez. See if that's still out there as well. But yeah, you know me, I like a long shot, but this week didn't seem like a good week to do some long shots, in my opinion. There's too many big names surfacing at the top of the rankings.
Yeah, my card, like I said, when it drifted to 22, it was too much for me. Justin Thomas, he's a dude that he's in the top 3 in every version of every model that I ran. Like I said, I ran 5 different versions or whatever. So it just everything that I'm looking for this week, he checks all of the boxes. So 22-1 here on him, the 27-1 on Cam Smith. Again, another dude that like the only flaw in his game is off the tee, and because he ends up losing 3-4 strokes every single tournament because he's sprayed it into the woods or he's hit it into some super incredibly long grass. Well, this might be the place you can get away from it so long as you can miss those bunkers. And so I think he could really, really do some damage here. So I do have him. Tommy Fleetwood, for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, in the fact that he's had so much success at St. Andrews, really loves links golf, and I think it suits him as best as anything right now. Sam Burns, numbers play for me. That said, at 45-1, which you can still find on Sam Burns, you're not going to get a dude with as high a win equity at 45-1. You're rarely going to get that. I mean, the guy's won multiple times already this season. He shot a 3-under in the first round of the Scottish Open last week before fading. So it's not like he can't do it, on these type of courses as well. So really do like Sam Burns. The long ticket on Homa, same thing you just mentioned, Steven. I couldn't pull the trigger at 50, but I do love it at the number that I got it at. I got Keith Mitchell as well on a long number. And then I also have Adrian Meronk, right? If you guys are familiar with Adrian Meronk, a guy on the DP World Tour that has had a bunch of success, has some win equity as well, and just
won like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, and he's a guy that I, again, not going to pop up in your models because there's not going to be enough stats on him for whatever, more of a gut type play. But again, he's big triple digits, and so it was more of a, hey, it's a guy with win equity, playing really, really good golf as of late, and I'm getting triple digits on him. So that's what's in the card right now. The only one that I'm considering, and when I say considering, I'm probably going to go ahead and make when we get off of here, is the Finau. The fact that both of you guys are on Finau, the fact that he is, again, top of the model for me in the 36th round as it is anyway. I mean, that's enough confirmation that I need with not only the numbers, but two guys that I consider smart also on it as well. So Finau will probably make the card and probably round things out for me there. But as always, if you do want to see the full betting cards of everybody on the staff, head over to the Discord channel. So if you're watching us on YouTube, it's in the link below. If you're listening to us, head over to lines.com, upper right-hand corner. There's going to be a little Discord thing. Click on that. Get in there. One, we're chatting golf as it is anyway, so you can get some insight. You can ask some questions, but also you get the full betting cards of everybody as they put them in. So some valuable stuff there as well. If you want to follow Brad on the Twitter machine at Brad Allen NFL, you want to follow Steven at Steven Anders1, you want to follow me at Matt Brown M2. Guys, good luck on all your bets.